The courtroom was silent, tense, and heavy with expectation. Parents, lawyers, and spectators waited for the child to speak. The hearing had dragged on for hours, filled with arguments, legal documents, and testimonies from adults who claimed to know what was best. Then, for the first time, the child was asked to speak, and what came out of their mouth stopped everyone. Even the judge, known for his composure, struggled to hold back tears. In that moment, the truth was no longer hidden behind legal jargon, excuses, or strategies. It was raw, honest, and undeniable. Family court is often a place where adults talk, argue, and make decisions about a child's life. But rarely does the child's voice take center stage. Their opinions, feelings, and experiences are often filtered through lawyers or interpreted by parents, and yet their perspective is the most important. Children notice details, remember moments, and feel emotions deeply. This story reminds us that even in the most formal, structured legal settings, a child's honesty can cut through tension and reveal the reality that adults sometimes overlook. The courtroom was tense, filled with whispers, shuffling papers, and the occasional cough, but nothing compared to the silence that fell the moment the child was asked to speak. For years, the adults in the room had dominated the conversation, discussing schedules, routines, and legalities. But today was different. Today, the child had the chance to share their perspective, and what came next would shift everything. The child took a deep breath, tiny fingers gripping the edge of the chair, and began to speak. Their voice was soft at first, almost hesitant, but as they continued, the words became clearer, stronger, and impossible to ignore. Even the judge, trained to remain neutral and composed, felt a lump in his throat, and many adults in the room exchanged glances, unsure of how to react. This was not a rehearsed statement. This was raw truth, a window into the heart and mind of someone too often overlooked in these proceedings. From the very beginning, it was clear that the child possessed a remarkable sense of awareness. They described their daily life with vivid detail, mornings filled with hurried breakfasts, afternoons with homework and chores, evenings of quiet reflection, and weekends punctuated by family dynamics that were sometimes calm, sometimes chaotic. Each detail was not just a narrative of routine, but a reflection of their emotional world. They spoke about the way each parent interacted with them, noting who listened when they were upset, who made them laugh, and who helped them feel safe during stressful moments. Even small gestures, a hand on the shoulder, a bedtime story, a comforting word after a bad day, were highlighted as crucial indicators of love and care. These observations, simple on the surface, carried profound weight in a courtroom where facts often drown out feelings. As the child spoke about their experiences with both parents, it became evident that they had developed emotional intelligence far beyond their years. They articulated feelings of fear, confusion, and longing, while also acknowledging moments of joy, support, and comfort. They admitted to feeling torn between parents, describing how arguments and conflicts left them unsure whom to side with, or whether they could express their true feelings without causing tension. Yet, despite this emotional complexity, the child maintained clarity and composure. They were neither manipulative nor pleading. They were honest, straightforward, and remarkably self-aware. This level of maturity is rare in children, especially when facing the formal and intimidating environment of a courtroom. The child did not shy away from describing the impact of the adult's behavior on their own life. They recounted nights spent lying awake, worried about what might happen next, moments when they felt invisible in the arguments that surrounded them, and times when they longed for simple consistency and stability. These words, spoken plainly, resonated with everyone in the room. They highlighted how even well-intentioned parents can inadvertently create emotional turmoil, and how children are often the silent witnesses to adult struggles. The courtroom, which had previously focused on schedules, financial arrangements, and legal procedures, now had to confront the most important factor, the child's emotional well-being. What made the child's testimony so compelling was not just the content of their words, but the traits they revealed. Courage was evident in their willingness to speak openly in front of strangers and authority figures. Honesty shone through in the clear recounting of experiences without exaggeration or embellishment. Emotional intelligence was present in the recognition of their own feelings, and in the ability to communicate them without blame. Respect was demonstrated through polite phrasing, attentive listening, and the careful explanation of experiences without attacking either parent. These traits combined to create a voice that was both credible and deeply moving, commanding attention and shaping the direction of the hearing. As the child continued, they began to offer insights into what they needed to thrive. They spoke about the importance of routines that provided security, of communication that was calm and understanding rather than argumentative, and of the ability to spend meaningful time with both parents without fear of conflict. They described what made them feel loved, safe, and supported, providing concrete examples such as shared activities, bedtime rituals, or moments when they could speak freely without judgment. This level of detail was eye-opening for the adults in the courtroom. It was one thing to discuss custody in abstract terms, and another to hear a child articulate exactly what made life manageable and comforting from their perspective. The judge, listening intently, began to visibly react to the testimony. Known for his stoicism, he occasionally nodded, furrowed his brow in thought, and took meticulous notes. When the child described moments of fear or sadness, his eyes welled up slightly, though he maintained his composure outwardly. The courtroom atmosphere shifted. Lawyers who had prepared arguments and evidence for weeks realized that this child's voice had a power that no document, affidavit, or legal strategy could match. The parents, both attentive and anxious, were reminded of the real human stakes behind their legal battle. The child's testimony was not just evidence. It was a lens through which every decision had to be re-evaluated. The child also highlighted the importance of fairness and balance. They expressed the desire to maintain relationships with both parents, to feel heard and respected, and to have a voice in decisions that affected their life. Importantly, they did not ask for one parent to be punished or for control to shift entirely in their favor. Instead, they emphasized emotional safety, consistency, and the ability to navigate their life without fear or guilt. These insights demonstrated not only wisdom beyond their years but also the ability to consider complex situations with empathy and reason. The courtroom was reminded that children, when given a chance, can express nuanced perspectives that challenge adults' assumptions and biases. Throughout the testimony, the child's observations revealed patterns of interaction that had gone unnoticed. They described how certain parental behaviors, though well-intentioned, created stress or confusion, and how small positive actions contributed significantly to their sense of security. Each observation was a piece of the puzzle, showing that custody decisions cannot rely solely on schedules, financial stability, or adult convenience. Emotional intelligence, consistency, and the ability to foster a nurturing environment emerged as critical criteria, all communicated through the child's voice. The parents, hearing their child speak so candidly, were confronted with uncomfortable truths. They realized how much their disputes, strategies, and focus on winning had impacted the child emotionally. In many ways, the testimony served as a mirror, reflecting the consequences of adult actions through the eyes of the child. The child did not assign blame but instead expressed needs for security, fairness, love, and understanding. This perspective was transformative, encouraging reflection, empathy, and a re-evaluation of priorities. The child's courage continued to shine as they addressed the future. They articulated hopes for family interactions that were calm and supportive, and emphasized the importance of having both parents involved in their life in meaningful ways. They described situations that had made them feel safe, loved, or supported, and suggested ways these practices could continue. The specificity of these recommendations, grounded in lived experience, gave the judge, lawyers, and parents concrete insights into how custody arrangements could best serve the child's interests. Every sentence reinforced the importance of listening, empathy, and responsiveness in decisions affecting a child's life. One of the most powerful moments came when the child expressed emotions openly, describing sadness, fear, and even frustration at times, but always framed within the context of wanting positive relationships with both parents. Their vulnerability was not weakness, it was strength. It highlighted that true courage lies in acknowledging emotions honestly, especially in a setting as intimidating as a courtroom. Adults in the room, many of whom had years of experience navigating legal systems, were moved by the simplicity and authenticity of a child speaking their truth. This moment reminded everyone present that emotional intelligence is just as critical as legal knowledge when determining what serves a child's best interests. As the child concluded, the courtroom was quiet, filled with a weighty silence. The testimony had cut through legal arguments, personal grievances, and preconceived notions. It was not about who had more evidence or who had better preparation. It was about understanding the child's needs, feelings, and perspective. The judge, unable to fully hide his emotional reaction, took a moment to compose himself. The impact of the child's words was undeniable. They had shifted the focus from adult conflict to child-centered decision-making, illustrating that the truest and most reliable evidence often comes from the person most affected, the child themselves. By the end of the hearing, the outcome was guided as much by the child's voice as by legal procedures. Custody arrangements were made with clear consideration for the child's emotional well-being. Rules were implemented to ensure stability, communication, and emotional safety. The story concluded with a simple but powerful lesson. Sometimes, the smallest voice carries the biggest truth. In a world dominated by adult concerns and legal formalities, listening to a child can reveal what is truly important: love, security, and understanding. And in that moment, even the judge, bound by law, could not hold back tears, because the truth had spoken for itself.